Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to take a look at Thief. The footage you're going to be seeing is from the PC version of the game. I was really hesitant to actually pick up Thief. I had planned on doing so, and then I kind of just, the more I watched about it, it seemed like they weren't really showing off the game, and I had some concerns and thoughts in my head when I saw the way things were being executed in earlier previews, and I just wasn't sure about it, but I decided, hey, let's do it, let's see what it's all about, and maybe I'll be completely wrong and I'll enjoy the game massive amounts. So I grabbed it on Steam yesterday and I started playing through it. And the first thing that immediately was just like, yes, this is how you do it, was something that we already knew. That was the customization when it comes to difficulty setting inside of Thief. We already had been aware that Eidos had said that they're going to let us, change all of this stuff, man. You can do just everything you want. You can make it this, you can make it hard like this, you can do permadeath, in Iron Man mode, and those options are all there, and I think that is one of the core aspects, the modifiable, difficulty that makes Thief actually really enjoyable, because you can really tweak it to your liking, and you can play the game in so many different ways. You can actually change, like, the entire way the game feels when you play it, and I think that's a very special thing. Developers have sort of done things like that in the past. I'm going to use Dishonored several times in this discussion, just as an example. I know they're not really the same game, but I think there are elements that contrast each other and that present themselves in both games that are very comparable. So, speaking of the difficulty curve, the way I'm playing the game currently, I have Iron Man mode off. I have a lot of things on, though, actually. So, no special arrows only, which means I can't use, like, blunt tip arrows, or I can't use, sharp arrows. I can only use blunt tip arrows, water arrows, and rope arrows. I also have basically kills turned off, alerts turned off. I can't knock anyone out, so I'm essentially playing a stealth playthrough. I do have saves turned on, so I can actually save whenever I want to. There's a couple other things I have tweaked to make the game pretty much extremely difficult without making it frustrating. I actually did try the game on Iron Man mode a little bit, but that's not for me. The whole permadeath thing on a game that's like 8 or 9 hours long. It was fun to mess around with, but that's not what I'm doing for my full playthrough. But it's the ability to actually make certain objectives cause you to fail that I think is a really nice touch. For example, in Dishonored, I tried to do the game on a full stealth playthrough, no alerts, nothing like that of that nature. And you wouldn't actually know if you succeeded in doing so until after the game was over, because there were actually times you could sort of alert people and not know that you alerted them. It was really frustrating. You'd play an entire 45-minute to 2-hour mission just to find out you did actually alert someone and have to start all over again. Thief allows you to turn on these options, for example, the no alerts, no kills, and as soon as you become alerted, as soon as someone discovers that you were actually there, becomes fully aware of your existence in the world, the mission fails, and you started over from your last save point. That's a nice feature because it takes away that frustration of not knowing, and it also just kind of lets you, hey, you failed, start over again. If you're into that kind of thing, which I am, I think that's what makes Thief really enjoyable for me, then it's a nice option to have, and I think it's really damn well done. So that's the first really positive thing with Thief there, is what Eidos has done with the modifiable difficulty. I hope a lot of developers in the future take note of this, because it's that idea that you can make the game cater to a wider audience by having these options. There are people who played the original Thief who don't want focus mode. That's fine, turn it off. You have these endless abilities and endless options to play the game you want to play it, and that is a big thumbs up for Thief right there. But let's talk about the actual gameplay. What is it like to play Thief? Now, the first thing is the environments, which are wonderfully designed. I think the world as a whole is a very nice place to be. It's very gloomy, very moody. It has a very nice setting. The atmosphere is extremely thick, and just in general, I like being in the world of Thief. I like, role-playing as a thief and taking things really seriously. Do I shut that door? Am I the kind of thief who goes in, rummages the whole place, leaves all the doors and cabinets open and all the drawers, or do I close them so they don't actually know that they've been robbed until several moments after being home, when they look and see that their family heirlooms are stolen and gone? It's all of those elements that give Thief give you a lot of enjoyment when playing Thief. There's a lot of immersion, I guess you could say there. It's a fun game to be inside of. It's a fun game to play for those reasons. Now, the gameplay itself, the actual, theft and all of those things, is all sort of tied together through the missions, through the city hub. So the city hub is where you're actually seeing me right now as Garrett. You can actually run around, you can buy equipment from certain vendors, you can get missions from Gasso, I think it's how you say his name, side missions. That's really all I've been focusing on right now. I haven't actually continued the main storyline, I guess you could say, which is kind of disjointed so far. Essentially, you know what happens in the beginning. Garrett wakes up several years later after this big event, finds the city's even worse than it already was. Everybody's infected by this thing called the Gloom, and you kind of just go from there. I haven't really been able to focus too much on the story just yet, but it hasn't really fazed me too much either. As much as I would like to know what the story is, the game just hasn't really played that way to me, where I'm concerned about the story. I'm more just concerned about being a thief and stealing things and finding the best possible loot and pulling off the biggest heist that I possibly can. So the City Hub is a nice touch. It's not as open as I thought it was going to be. When they originally talked about it, I really thought it was going to be this much more open area. There was going to be a lot more exploration you can do. It was just going to seem larger. Instead, it's kind of this really like slopped together kind of cube in the middle of all these other separate side missions. I'm glad it's there, but you can tell that it probably would have been done differently had the game not been in development for as long as it has been. And that is one other thing I want to point out that I think the development team behind Thief has done extremely well. Usually when a game has been in development for this long and has planned releases on so many different platforms and different pieces of hardware and software, it ends up being an absolute disaster. And I think Eidos has actually held together Thief quite well in that aspect. I mean, if you look at something like Duke Nukem, I know that was a lot longer of a time span than Thief, but still, it's a prime example of what happens when you plan to release a game like 6 different times over a decade. And that was kind of the issue with Thief. It hasn't been as long for them, but, you know, good job to them getting this on next-gen consoles, being able to make use of that power of the next-gen consoles. It's not the most amazing-looking game on Xbox One. I have seen it there, but it still runs great. It looks good. It's a nice-looking game in general, and just in general, good job making this game still work and be as good as it is, because I think it could have been a lot worse with the way the development for Thief has happened over the years. So let's actually get to the gameplay finally, the idea of being a thief and, you know, stealing things and killing people if that's also your choice. Now again, as I said, the way that I'm playing Thief, I cannot kill people, I cannot alert them. That is an instant fail for me. I have played the game with those options on, and I have attempted to engage in combat. And one of the first things that you're going to notice that sets apart Thief, again, I want to make this comparison to Dishonored, because in Dishonored you really could play the game exactly how you wanted to play it. Meaning that you could be full stealth, or you could be full-on crazy assassin. Corvo was essentially an assassin, you know, he was very powerful in combat, he was very skilled, he had a pistol, he had a lot of tools that were good at killing people. Garrett is a thief. He is not like Corvo. He is very good at stealing things, he's very good at hiding in the shadows and being extremely quiet and, you know, pickpocketing people, just, you know, existing in a place without letting anyone know he actually exists. That is what Garrett is best at, and when you attempt to engage in combat in the same way that you would with Corvo and Dishonored, you're going to find it to be very painful and you're most likely going to die, which is kind of the reason that I said, this is a thief game. I want to steal things, I want to be a thief. I don't really care about killing people, so that's why I chose my difficulty setting that way. Now, of course, you can turn that off, and if you want to try and get into, you know, combat and, you know, fights with people and try and shoot people in the head with your bow, you're completely free to do that. It's completely up to you. But I think that the game does benefit more from being played in a more stealth-like manner, in a more focused and quiet and patient manner. And that is where I think the decision comes as to whether or not you should play Thief, whether or not you should drop the $50 or the $65 to pick up Thief. Do you like, you know, really heavy, slow, methodical, well thought out stealth type games? There hasn't really been anything quite like this in a long time. I would say that probably the last Thief was the one that was closest to it. Many games now give you the option. You know, do you want to be a full-on crazy combat? Do you want to be stealth? Thief kind of really pushes more towards the stealth aspect of things, and I think it just makes sense. I mean, you're a thief. You're supposed to steal things without being spotted. Of course, sometimes you are spotted like I was there, and that is one of the things you'll notice. Even though I have the option to fail the game when I am discovered on, it doesn't mean that I can't be slightly spotted. I can't spook someone. She doesn't know who I am. The guards don't know who I am. They don't know I actually am here yet. They just know that she was afraid. Now, once I actually do become spotted, then yes, the mission would fail. But that is the kind of difficulty curve that you're looking at when you play Thief the way that I'm playing it. Now, of course, you could set it up so it's not a big deal if somebody spots you. You can attempt to kill one person and then escape, and it would probably get messy from there, and I think the satisfaction level would actually go down. For me, one of the most satisfying moments in Thief has been entering a building to do some sort of a small heist and seeing just how much I can steal, how much loot can I make it out with. And some of the loot in the game is intentionally put in the most difficult places. For example, earlier on in the game, you will experience a situation where you have to steal this mask. And the maker of the mask is actually downstairs in his workshop, and his table is covered with loot. And he keeps going back and forth from one table to the other, reading a sort of instruction manual, working on an item. And if you can actually manage to sneak up behind him while he's looking at the other table, steal the loot, and then switch over, the satisfaction there is extremely, extremely high. The reward is really great. It's personal satisfaction that, man, you know, I stole all of that stuff from that building. I never was spotted. And that's where the reward aspect comes in for Thief for me. That is where the game is best. Now, granted, it does seem to get a little bit repetitive. I mean, you start to realize, yes, you're a thief. That's what you're doing. You're walking into rooms. You're doing your best to steal all of the items. But I think it's that tension when you play the game in the full, you know, sort of stealth, I guess you would call it a ghost playthrough, where that satisfaction is much higher, the reward is much higher, and the repetition starts to fade away. That's my thoughts on Thief, guys. Let me know if you've been playing the game. Let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions about the game, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. It's been Tony Mo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.